Hey you, it's Rachel O'Mara. I'm host of the Pausecast, and I'm so glad that you are here. We are discussing tips and proven strategies in the world of emotional intelligence so that you can rise to your next level of leadership without the overwhelm. I'm also the author of the book Pause, Harnessing the Life-Changing Power of Giving Yourself a Break, based on my burnout of Google and all the things that I've learned since that are really in this realm of neuroscience, psychology, and emotional intelligence. If you're interested to download my free guidebook for how to get out of overwhelm, I invite you to do that at rachelomara.com/guidebook. Just so excited. Let's just start and dive in. Today, I am here with a dear friend and author, Janice Litvin. Hi, Janice. How are you today?
Hi, Rachel. I'm doing fine.
We met a few years ago now as part of a group of fellow authors, female authors called the Authoresses. And so we had met for a little bit to catch up, and then I invited you on the podcast. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you currently work on?
Thank you so much, Rachel. I am on a mission to help leaders and teams prevent burnout so that people can come to work healthy, happy, and ready to work. And the outcome for the organization is stronger productivity and retention. And I do this through speaking, writing, and my books.
We are cut from the same cloth, Sister Janice, because we both specialize in helping corporate worlds learn and move out of burnout and get into a different space. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, how did you get started in this work? I'd love to hear your story. I know I can share a little bit how it means so much to me, but what is it that you encountered that helped move you into this space to work on it?
Gosh, I mean, do you have 2 hours?
Yeah, I do. But we probably don't want to have it all along for that.
Yeah. So it started with Zumba fitness. So during the 2008 meltdown, I had been in tech. I did tech software development, software training, software consulting, and then software recruiting. And of course, as you know, in 2008, there were no jobs, so there was no recruiting. And after 20 years in recruiting, I was ready for a change. But it was the first time in my life that I had no direction. And I'm being slightly facetious, but I'm very directed and I'm very aggressive when it comes to being directed in my career. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start going to the gym. And actually, as I was thinking about this yesterday in preparation for today, I thought to myself, anytime someone feels stuck, going to the gym can make a huge difference because physical activity generates all kinds of happiness chemicals in the brain, not to mention good blood flow from the heart to the whole body, including the brain. So I became a Zumba fitness instructor. And after teaching Zumba, which I did love, and I still am teaching now, but after a couple of years, I thought, I need a new challenge. And so I thought to myself, how can I bring my love of fitness and physical activity and mental health into the workplace? Not to teach Zumba in the workplace, but to inspire people to get intrinsically motivated to be healthy.
So powerful. Wow. So your story goes back to the burnout of everyone in 2008.
Yeah.
And I love that you're still on that mission. And who knew Zumba would be so much of a teacher now that you teach it?
Yes,
Well,
and obviously, as we all know, after the burnout or the meltdown, the burning meltdown of 2008, we had the burning meltdown of COVID in 2020.
Yeah. I agree. I remember that. And as an athlete, I really relate to your story where if I don't have an opportunity to move my body and move into space that feels like I'm doing something with my body, I feel very antsy or pent up. And I think that's very helpful I'm a rower. I don't know if you know that, but I've rowed my whole life since I was 15 and pretty competitive at it. So for me, it's been a lifesaver to have an outlet like physical exercise. And I also know it's not enough to typically get out of burnout.
And what you made me think about just now when you were describing that is children. And children especially need physical activity. Of course, we found that drastically during COVID, but especially children who might be slightly hyperactive or very hyperactive, making sure they're engaged in something they love. And most children love physical activity. Some love music, some love sports, whatever, or riding their bike or playing with their wagon or their other friends. And it's true for adults too. We all need physical activity to stay mentally healthy.
We can learn from the children, basically, and help us remember a lot of things that we typically do forget. I know. And so in your work,
back to the burnout world, you, I think, are really helpful with helping others understand it is a two-way street. Can you
Yes.
share a little bit about what that really means in terms of responsibility and how we can think about burnout?
Well, yes. Thank you for asking. So traditionally, we, the corporate we, thought that burnout was all about the person, the individual. And to some degree, it certainly is. And that means how we react to stressors. And those stressors can be a number of things: overwork, overwhelm, a manager who doesn't support them, or someone who's rude to other people at work. They call that the brilliant jerks. So that's one area of burnout prevention. The other is the environment, and what my friend Laura Putnam calls the water versus the fish. And so what that means is, what are the mission and the policies and the values of a company? For example, does a company allow managers to text or email people nights and weekends? And I've heard managers say, oh, but I don't expect them to respond. But the thing is, as soon as an employee sees a message from a manager, they're going to start to get an emotional and physiological reaction. And so those messages can be set in some kind of scheduler so they don't go out nights and weekends.
That's one of
And
the
that,
best
and that's
inventions, by the way, of the new updates with email, and that you can write it to your heart's content, but you don't have to send it until
right.
8 a.m. on Monday.
Exactly, exactly. And that's just one example. There are many other policies in terms of not burning out your people, supporting your people, make sure they're on some kind of career trajectory, not like, well, we've just got, you were hired for XYZ and that's what we're going to do. People are looking for growth and they're looking for mission and they're looking for values. And so if you can put someone on a growth track, then they'll be more motivated to work very hard.
Yeah. Here for the two-way street. I think of this a lot myself. And I actually think it's a new way to frame this burnout now in our world, in our era of post pandemic and now AI, because it is a 24/7 world. And I think of it like a systemic issue. It's a system. So are you in the system, or are you going to help change the system so that the culture or how you show up in that culture, whether you have the boundaries or tolerate it or do anything, could be helpful in that way. And I don't think that's always been like you said, it's just been an individual. And that's a big difference because now it puts the responsibility on the company.
Right. And at the same time, the individual, well, what I'm trying to say is not every manager has been trained in emotional intelligence. Some come by it naturally, some don't.
Yeah.
Most managers were promoted for their skill, finance, accounting, law, architecture, whatever it is, software, whatever. However, if you can't understand emotional intelligence, then you can't manage people. It's a human function.
Yeah, yeah, and it is on both sides. I think I probably framed that a little bit too much on the company, but yeah, it's both sides, whether it's you or the person. And emotional intelligence is also one of my big areas. So we have that also as our same cloth cutting. And I agree. And it's actually been a challenge, I think, as people get up to speed racing with AI in the world. And I know you come from tech. I worked in Google for 13 years. I help people in tech now. You help people all over. And
Right.
it's so important to know that we can build our awareness. It's a skill. It's still human and humid, but it's mostly human. And that's so, so important in this era and of what we were talking about. And let's talk about that just for a moment too. I know you have a lot of experience with human resources. You're part of the SHRM, the SHRMs, and you're even a professor at Rutgers and like all these really cool things. National Speakers Association. So you're certainly out there as an advocate. And knowing that we're in the world of AI, how do we circumvent the things that people are thinking around burnout? I know AI can have certain issues with it. How do we keep showing up as people? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So, as we keep hearing and reading on LinkedIn, wherever you read your articles, HBR or whatever, yes, AI is one of the biggest revolutions we've ever experienced, and people liken it to the Industrial Revolution of the early 20th century. And of course, I agree. The thing is, AI is a tool. It's just like when the IBM PC first came out. At that time, people were afraid this gray box on their desk was going to replace their jobs. As we all learned, the IBM PC and the Apple and all the other products were a tool. And it's the same thing with AI. It's a tool. In some areas, some work is replaced, usually in busy work and processing large amounts of data. So for example, in human resources, when people have to read through hundreds of resumes, a quick scan of an AI tool will separate out top candidates. But there's an inherent problem that I think most people are aware of now, and that's the bias that's built in. Because remember, AI tools are programmed by humans. So if a CEO or a CHRO says, well, just create the AI matching tool, sourcing tool, just base it on the employees we already have. Well, you may have inherent biases on your current set of employees. They may be more male versus female. They might not be from a diverse culture. Women who may have taken a year off to nurse their babies might have a ding for having a 1-year gap on their resume. So it's really, really critical to run what I call a stress audit in my Banish Burnout work. It's a bias audit on your AI tools.
Yeah. Good reminders about biases and to keep AI in check, I would say, as even though, yes, the job market is shifting from under our feet and there are different changes, it won't replace you. And one thing I'll share that I heard about, which I really liked, I read this article in the Financial Times a little while ago, talked about this concept of the glue. If you have the glue skills, and we think about glue, what do you think of in the company?
Sticking together.
Yeah, like you kind of create the cohesion. And these are people skills. That's the emotional intelligence. So how do you create yourself to be in that glue or be a glue skills person? I was like, wow, that's really interesting because glue I had heard it actually not in necessarily a positive way, where people think of the glue people as the folks who keep everything together, where you take the odd jobs or you plan the party or that kind of thing. But no, actually, I think it's actually elevating to a new way of thinking about it, which I love because I was like, wow, what if people all thought that their skills, even as technical as they can be or as comprehensive as they are, that they actually round them out with ways to be more human that are going to only, I think, strengthen and shine in this era of AI. What do you think?
Yes, and another trend we're seeing is less human interaction during the recruiting process. And
Mm.
of course, right now, the hiring is favoring the side of the employer, but things change. As we all know, things come up and things go down. And candidates do not like to be ghosted. They like to be kept informed. I have one story I tell of a young AI engineer from CMU, Carnegie Mellon University. She got an interview with a large tech company that we've all heard of and we all use, that I won't tell you the name. And she never spoke to a human being until the day of her interview. And she never spoke to a human being again. It was all automated. And she felt like she's way out on left field. She was 22 or 23 years old. She didn't know that it was okay to track people down on LinkedIn and start DMing them. The onus shouldn't have been on her. The onus should have been on the company, especially for a tech job. If she's in marketing sales, that's a different story, but this was for a tech position. And there's even one company that I saw a demo of, and the recruiter sends out a pre-programmed video message, the same one they send out to everybody. So you get a semblance of humanity, and then they ask the candidate to answer all the pre-qualifying questions in video format. Okay, that does help them understand a little bit about the EQ of the person. However, there's no glue there. It's kind of like two pieces of paper passing each other in the night, but there's no glue.
On this topic of job seeking, I know there's a lot of folks out there right now. Burnout is certainly a topic, I think, where you're just repeatedly doing the same tasks and might be automated, like you're saying. What guidance would you give for anyone who is looking for a role right now where there's just a lot of noise and it's challenging in this market?
It's very challenging. And I was coaching a friend of the family's son-in-law about this, and he's quite a smart young man. He's got a lot of advanced skills for where he is, a lot of management skills, and he keeps getting turned down. He gets the interviews, but he's getting turned down. I said, it sounds to me like there's something broken in your interview skills. And he goes, well, I answer the questions. Well, answering the questions is not always answering the questions. So job search is a whole science in and of itself. First of all, with the power of LinkedIn, making sure people do their homework. And even though the hiring manager or the recruiter is sort of in charge of the questions, it's on the candidate's onus to know as much as they can and to take control where appropriate. For example, if they've done their homework about a person, they can march, so to speak, because this is all on Zoom now, march into the interview and say, oh, I see you went to University of Texas. My brother went to University of Texas. Hook 'em horns, make a little joke. I mean, the more you can develop common ground, the better, because it takes down the walls of separation. Again, the glue, you're building the building blocks of the glue. And so finding out as much as you can about the people who are going to interview you by doing your own research, understanding the big picture issues with the company and its industry. For example, if you're interviewing at Target, even though it's a software job, it's a retail establishment, knowing as much about what's going on in retail, what's going on in Target per se, and communicating that. When they say to you, do you have any questions for us? Rather than saying, no, we've answered all my questions, have a pocket question ready, such as, I see that Target is going through exponential growth in 2027. What are your plans for whatever? So having a smart, big picture question ready shows that you're gluing yourself to the whole picture and the whole organization, not
Yeah.
just your spot on the org chart.
Yeah, great tips. Thank you. Thank you. And then regarding that, so if anyone's feeling a little burned out, what can they do to help continue their search and feel like they can hang in there without feeling that world of burnout that can be so common?
Well, first of all, if somebody's really beginning to, well, and before the pre-first, number one, I developed this tool, which I'm happy to share with people and it's called How Burned Out Are You? Because burnout doesn't just explode overnight. It's a build. Just like other than flash floods, if there's a storm, the storm drains start to fill up. It's the same thing with burnout. There are little clues and cues you can pay attention to. For example, during COVID, I snapped at my husband one day because I was all cooped up, and I thought, oh, this COVID thing isn't going to bother me. I already work from home. My adult son and my husband, we all work from home. No brainer. But what I hadn't calculated on is the fact that I hadn't seen our best friends in weeks, and I began to get snappy. And so snapping at people is one clue, or inability to sleep, inability to eat, or the reverse overeating, or hiding in bed with Netflix binging. All of these are little clues that something's brewing. And it's important to pause, as you talk about, Rachel, to pause and pay attention to yourself, do some journaling, talk to your family, talk to a coach, talk to a friend, say, I'm feeling a little bit out of sorts. I can't quite put my finger on it. Can we talk this through?
Nice. Those are great clues to be on the lookout for. Is that tool part of your Banish Burnout Toolkit book?
Well, yes and no. I just developed this tool. So it's not in my book, but I give it away in my book.
Tell us a little bit about the Banish book.
So this is my book, Banish Burnout Toolkit. It is a all color workbook. I love color. And it goes along with my keynotes, and it helps people. This is for the first part of burnout, which I described at the beginning, the inside out part. So, and talking about pausing, my very first tool is called Stop, Take a Breath, Observe, and Proceed. So it's a pause process, and that's used when people encounter whatever stressor or situation. It could be a long line at the grocery store that's making you angry, or it could be someone being rude to you at work, which is making you angry. Rather than just react or get defensive, what if we took a pause and take a deep breath? And by the way, the deep breath, as you probably know, engages the parasympathetic nervous system and actually physically pushes out the knots in your stomach, or however you feel stress in your jaw, your neck, your back, whatever, and allows you it gives you time to breathe and think how you choose to respond. What am I feeling? And this, of course, happens very fast. What am I feeling? What am I thinking? How do I want to respond? Do I want to yell at that person? Or do I want to say, why don't we pause this meeting and come back tomorrow so we can regroup and rethink our strategies rather than dealing with a brilliant jerk?
That's great. I love the stop process. We can't get enough of that, and it lends itself easily to observing. And this workbook, full of color, sounds like a great accompaniment to any talks that you're giving.
Right.
What feels like a really hot topic today that you're helping people with in those talks and those keynotes that you do?
I think the healthy boundaries part of it, especially given, I'll say the word crazy, the very busy life we're all in, the overload of work, which has been brewing But everywhere I go, every client I meet, the people are telling me the same thing. We're overloaded and we're overworked. And the boss just assigned me this new AI implementation and I can't get my work done. And so what I teach people is how to say no without saying no. For example, the boss comes to you and goes, "Hey, Janice, you're so good at tech. I think we're going to give you the AI implementation for the whole HR department." And so now you're like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can get that done and meet all my other commitments that I've already committed to. So rather than saying, no, I just can't do that. Are you crazy? Rather saying, wow, I'm so honored. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Now we're going to need to sit down and review all of my projects because just without even digging in, I can see that this project's going to take full time for X number of weeks or months. And so we need to take a look at everything and make sure everything gets done without burning anyone out.
That's a really good tactic and helps bring other people in to understand what exactly is on your plate. It sounds like very good communication and boundary setting all around.
Managers, while they might, like I said before, while they might be really good at the job that they were doing when they got promoted, they may not be really good at, like I say, A, emotional intelligence, and B, knowing how to truly manage a project and the workload. And so unfortunately, the people have to know how to push back.
We're wrapping up here on my questions. Just one other thing I'm thinking about is as we're moving into the next part of this year and new challenges are always around the corner. Can you share some guidance or anything that you would share with leaders who are navigating these things? Like, how can we best support our teams and our organizations so that we feel equipped when all of this is really moving under our feet so fast?
Well, here's my attitude about that. People who are aligned to the mission and values of the company with the work they're doing will work harder. As long as you create a psychologically safe space and managers are trained to let people say what they want. That means a few different things. Number one, allowing employees to rate their managers like managers rate their employees. It can be done anonymously. It can be a one-question survey once a month. It can be some kind of quick anonymous tool so that everybody is on the same page, and to create a culture where without the people, there is no company. And to create a people first culture. Yes, you have goals. Yes, you have revenue drivers for Wall Street or whatever kind of company you are. But without the people, there's no work. And so remembering that caring for the people is as important as caring for the bottom line.
That's really gold right there. Thank you for sharing that. Are there any other words of wisdom that you would like to leave us with, Janice, in terms of banishing burnout and feeling like you are on a path towards feeling in a better place?
Thank you for that question. I had a meeting with somebody from a university today, and he said, we don't really have burnout here. Yeah, kids get stressed during the semester, but we don't really have burnout. And I thought to myself, is this person in touch with every student, or do they just wait for people to come to them? And I did a quick statistical analysis, which declared that 50% of college students are burned out. And so paying attention to how your employees are doing by asking them how they're doing. And a lot of people are, number one, employees are afraid to ask for help. Creating a safe space where a manager says, how are you doing? Do you have all the resources you need? How's everything going? And making sure that employees know that you really and truly care about them, not just with words, but with actions.
Very, very potent, powerful guidance. Thank you, Janice. We'll end on that note. Where can people find you and learn more about you? Or is there anything else you'd like to share on that?
I'm all over LinkedIn, and my website is JaniceLitvin.com. I have tools to share. If people want to reach out to me, Janice@JaniceLitvin.com.
Great. We'll put that in the show notes, JaniceLitvin.com. So grateful that you were here today, Janice, to talk about our common denominator of burnout and how we can help others on our missions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening today to the podcast. You rock. If you haven't already, please subscribe, rate us, leave your review. I'd love to hear from you and help us get the word out to all of those who are in search of wanting to get out of overwhelm and rise to their next level of leadership. If you think that you might benefit from these tools or know anyone else who would, just invite them to join us. Podcast.